Hello guys, and welcome back to another Spore creation video. And for today's creation, we're going to be making a forest dragon as a one-shot build. Now, for those who may not remember, a one-shot build is when, using Dark Injection's unlimited complexity, you are able to make a creation that the game simply cannot handle. There's no texturing, no rendering, no test drive, animations, all that other kind of stuff. So essentially, I only have one attempt, one shot at making this creation. If it crashes, I lose it entirely. And yes, as always, it crashes at the end, but unfortunately, I was able to finish it this time round. So, a forest dragon may seem a little bit, I don't know, simple in regards to the other creations I've been doing recently. And the reason why I wanted to do this is actually quite simple. So, back in the day, back when I first started, or not first started, back when I was, in my opinion, really in my prime of making creations, was when I was making these really over-the-top, really heavily stylized, super detailed, whatever, like just these really silly over-the-top dragons. Either as one-shot builds, as mega builds, as freedom creations back with Vanilla Spore, all these other different kind of things. This was, in my opinion, when I was really at my prime of making like these kind of creations. And they're a ton of fun, they're really interesting. Sure, dragons are probably oversaturated on my channel, and I have been trying quite hard to move away from that, to add more variety, to step away from essentially the stereotype. But I've come to learn recently that at the end of the day, these things were, in my opinion, probably my favourite type of creations and probably the things I am the best at. And I'm kind of turned around a little bit. I've done a bit of a 180 where instead of avoiding them, I kind of want to try and embrace them and see what happens from there. Now, a forest dragon does in fact refer to, back when I was a lot more younger, back in the Vanilla Spore days before mods, I used to have this habit of making these really large series of elemental dragons. And back then, they were repetitive, they weren't very good, they were very, very simple, but they were really fun. And there is something I thoroughly enjoy about making like one same creature in a different variety of themes and patterns, and elementals are really, really cool thing to tackle. So I wanted to try that again here. I wanted to try get back to making these stupid, big, overpowered dragons, and to do it like with this really cool theme. I really, really hope that you guys are going to enjoy it. It's going to be a lot of dragons, but hopefully it's going to be a lot of really cool looking dragons. So, first things first with this one, the posture was heavily inspired by a couple of Google images, so you'll probably find similar things very, very quickly. I decided to go with this because one habit I do have whenever I try to tackle a one-shot build is a lot of my dragons tend to have the very, very similar, pretty much the same kind of proportions, the same kind of stance, build, etc. And I wanted to go something different. What I want out of this series of builds is, I don't want them to be defined only by their elements. I want each dragon to visually look unique and to have like a different kind of body form. So with this one, I aim to go with kind of a more slender thing, a bit more snake-like, and I think it'll be quite interesting. I hope it will be. Of course, it's going to need very large wings. When it came to the details, I had a couple of like different styles in mind. So with the hands and feet, I actually added like a couple of braces, or like bracelets even. I had some bracelets with a couple of little gems, as well as all the little grassy parts, and that is paying homage to some just really old school designs back in the core Spore days, back with no mods. And the best you could do is freedom. And that was a really cool thing, which is like adding these little gem parts here and there. They don't really add anything to the creation, don't really make much sense to have them, but they just looked nicer, they just helped tie things together. And I was going to try and introduce that back here. When it comes to all the horns, all the spikes, all these different parts along the neck and the chest, I use these parts to simulate roots, bark, wood, all that other kind of stuff. And I'm hoping it looks good. It's a bit of a repetitive design here, but it's very, very hard to describe. And I find that kind of repetitive design running down the neck and chest, it has a very pleasing look of symmetry, the nice patterns, I don't know. But there's something about it which I've observed, it's just nice to look at. And again, it's another really old school design that I hope to just fit in here. And of course, had to add in the modded part to the, I don't know what it's called, like the little leafy, bushy texture part running down the middle of it. That would cover the base of the roots, or the base of the horns. And just, you know, add a bit more green to it, add a bit more nice like variety and contrast in colours and such. when it came to the leaves, when it came to the wings, these were a struggle. So as you can see here, I've started off using leaves. The idea I had in mind for this was some kind of like plated wing design. I'm really not sure how to describe it, but imagine the Banshee or the Ikram from Avatar, how their wings are like somewhat separated. I was trying to go for like a similar kind of theme here, and of course trying to use leaves because I didn't want to just default to feathered wings or webbed wings. I wanted something unique. And in the end, I feel like this technique here was a serious miss. You see me trying to add a variety of parts on. I tried to cover the base of the leaves, which just look really blocky and horrendous. I tried to add the same root parts and the same symmetry to hopefully make the wings look similar to the rest of the design so it's not too out of place. But in the end, the wings just felt really cluttered, really forced. It just wasn't very, very good. So in the end, I scrapped it entirely. And I tried to go with a different theme, this time inspired by the Glade Keeper from Finalizing. Instead of wings, she just has very large trees emanating from her back. That's what I tried to go for here, but unfortunately, making a tree in Spore. You can make trees in Spore easily enough, but if you're trying to make a tree attached to a creation, it's basically, it's really, really difficult to have that tree look nice and simple, to have all the detail it needs to look like a tree and not some kind of cartoon blob. But it's really difficult to have that without, one, you know, causing the game to crash due to over complexity, which does happen a lot, and two, make it look consistent with the rest of the creation. So I scrapped out the tree idea entirely, and in the end, sometimes the most effective solution is the most simple one. I use the grass parts of the wings. Now, it's kind of funny really just how simple it was. It actually looks, in my opinion, significantly better and a lot more for what I was aiming for. I felt like the more feathery, bushier parts of the base of the wings, the converts, I believe it's called, those really tied it all together and just helped make the wings feel, or the transition between the leaves and the limbs just feel so much more natural. And it's quite interesting really, because when it came to this creation, I was really trying to avoid having feathery wings or webbed bat-like wings. I was trying to avoid that and having something be a little bit more original. And when it came to those little bushier parts here, overall these wings now do feel like feathery wings, which is quite interesting because, like I said, I was really trying to avoid that, and in the end, I actually feel like it looks better for it. It's kind of funny how it works out, really. And like I mentioned earlier, I added a couple little gems in there because, again, even though I don't really add much to it, I don't really make much sense, they just tie the creation together. It's like that nice little extra thing to look at, an extra layer of detail, and every now and then it's nice to have those little bits of additions here and there. Now, just as I struggled on the wings, I also struggled on the head. When it came to the head design, so this being a one-shot build means that I don't have to worry about animation. All I have to worry about is how it looks, and therefore it gives me the freedom of making a custom build head. And it's at this point that I really figured out I am really, really rusty. I'm really, really rusty and need a bit more practice, which is a good thing that I'm doing this kind of creation theme in the first place. The type of head I wanted to go for was something very regal and very proud looking, but in particular, while I wanted the chin to be rather large, as you can see now, the chin currently has 3 large spikes, or 3 large horns coming off of it, and a bunch of ridges to the back of the lower jaw. I specifically wanted the upper jaw to be larger than the lower jaw, for the upper teeth to overlap. And I feel like it took me a couple of attempts before I can really get that kind of look. As you can see currently, it was all a little bit mishmash, things were stacked up, and proportionally things were kind of off. One thing in particular was that the beak of the upper jaw, the part I used was really clashing with the spike of the lower jaw, and it was really hard to, you know, see where things begun and see where things ended. Like, just general definition of the jaw just wasn't really quite there. So in the end, I scrapped it and tried again. The winning solution in the end, after quite a bit of trial and error, was to remove these spikes on the lower chin and instead just add like these little beady grass parts, which, to be honest, I actually think probably looked a bit better. It makes the, you know, the addition of the grass parts a little bit more consistent throughout the creation and not exclusively only to the wings. I also placed the teeth first. Last time I made the jaw and then tried to place the teeth underneath it, which was, you know, it's a very hit or miss technique. This time round, I added the teeth in first and built the upper jaw around it. And while proportionally, in the end, the general mouth was a little bit thicker than I intended. I still think it just looks better in the end. I decided to go for like very small eyes, like nice little beady eyes, because it's a bit of a funny thing really. It kind of feels like that when it comes to larger creations or larger creatures in general, having these smaller eyes just somehow makes the entire creature seem larger. Normally I prefer having larger eyes, but this time I tried to, you know, take it back a notch. So the horns are a bit of an interesting thing, because normally when it comes to a nature theme, I immediately go for antlers. Or, if I don't go for antlers, normally my second immediate alternative is to go for like, basically twigs. Or like some kind of like tree thing going on. This time round, I just wanted some big, like it was a bit improvised. I didn't really intend for this to happen, but in the end, I just wanted like a nice big combination of twigs and horns and just this really big over-the-top crest. As like I said earlier, the entire point of this creation is to be something really stylized, really over the top. So I can't imagine how heavy that crest would be, but to be honest, I think it looks cool. And that is the goal of this creation, is something that looks cool. After adding a bit of the plated details along the ridge of the nose and to the head, I then started working on the rest of the neck and torso. I added the, you know, obligatory spikes down the spine of the neck, and added a bunch of these various little green the little green bushy parts, just to give the creature a bit more texture, and some flipped over Adora visors, just to give the neck, again, just more noise, more parts, more detail. As a very interesting thing with these one-shot creations is there's a really, really hard balance between making something visually appealing and not going too far with the detail, because the last couple of times I've been doing these one-shot builds, I've ended up going, I just keep on going until I'm forced to stop. And the point at which I'm forced to stop is usually when the game crashes. So, like I said, it's a really hard balance to make it look visually appealing without going over the top. So, fortunately, because it is, again, a forest dragon, I was able to use the already green, leafy, bushy parts and just kind of like slap them all over the body. It probably is quite lazy, to be honest, but at the end of the day, I needed something just to add to the base of the body, because the skin just looked really exposed and really bare in comparison to the rest of the creation. Now the tail, as you can see here, I'll be entirely honest, when it came to the tail, I don't really know what I was trying to achieve there. I just wanted something like a fan. I don't know why, but at the end of the day, why not? You know, you can't really explain everything, can you? Sometimes you just do a thing because you want to. And the tail is a prime example of that. Now, just like on the wings, I added a gem to the shoulders as well. Another really old school technique was to have like these, I don't know how you describe, like decorative things, accessories if you will, on like the wings, the shoulders, sometimes on the wrists or the elbows, or on like basically on joints. That's what a lot of people used to do back in the day, was like these really large accessory parts. On the shoulders and the wings were really popular places, and as you can see here, I have this one singular large gem piece that's just covered in leaves, and it's as simple as that. That's all there is to it, nothing more. And again, it just helps keep the overall theme more consistent. Again, I didn't want the grass to only be on the wings, I want it to be elsewhere as well. So now I've got it on the shoulders, on the chin, on the wrists and ankles. Again, makes it more consistent. I've also used some flipped over, can't remember the name, it's like the pterophlippia part, I'm not sure. The large, flat, spiky one, that looks really cool. I use that flipped over just to give like a set of scales, something similar to what you see in some theropod carnivore designs or drawings. Just again, just some nice large thick scales, something purposefully large and clunky, that way I didn't get carried away, that way I didn't add too much and it crashes, which has been again happening a lot lately. I need to basically unwind and relax when it comes to my techniques, because where I've got into the habit of doing like micro detail in a lot of places, I think Drogon was a good recent example, and the Diablos Wyvern one-shot build a while ago as well. Both of those creations, I really focused on the macro detail, and Spore is not designed for it. It's simply not designed for it, and therefore it does crash prematurely before I could take, you know, the final pictures and finish it. And so that is something I purposefully been avoiding here. Instead, I am trying to use the big bulky details, that way I actually have a chance of finishing it. So the tail in this phase looked incredibly bare. And when it came to the tail, I simply had no inspiration. I really didn't know what to do for it. So I ended up using the same technique as I did for the neck and chest. I wanted to keep the technique consistent and use that along the entire underside of the tail. Again, trying to simulate that whole roots, plants, roots, vines, bark, woods, that whole kind of texture. And then using the same green bushy part around the rest of the tail. Now in this stage, it does look just very boring. It looks very boring because right now, all of the excitement is on the front of the creation, none of it's on the back. But funnily enough, like I said, going for the big over-the-top theme. In the end, just adding some great big horns or, again, roots on the around the tip of the tail actually made it look a lot more grand. Like, it's funny how just such a simple technique, just such a simple idea, just kind of helped highlight the part so much, because now it suddenly looks a little bit more in tune, you know, on the same level as the rest of the creation. The shape is a little bit awkward. It does look a little bit angular. That was a mistake on my part. It wasn't something I could really fix very easily, not without completely redoing it. But in the end, I thought it was, you know, it was quite acceptable. And one kind of interesting thing here that, again, was just purely improvised, was using the very large ram horn to try and make it look like that the tip of the tail wasn't, you know, where it actually was. The tip of the tail kind of curved inwards into, again, another root bark kind of wood texture. Then when it came to the rest of the creation, the back spikes and such, I just simply added a variety of hair leg mites, the green variant, which I'm very grateful I had the access, which I'm very glad I had the ability to use. And then after that was again more of a flipped over armor part. That way, just to again tie things together, just make things look a little bit more polished. Now, like I said, I really had to stop myself here because I've been getting into the habit of making creations far too over the top, far too detailed, and the game crashes. So this is where I finished off. I wish I could have added more, but I needed to show a finished creation for a change. Now, when it came to the final result of this creation, I have to say I am really pleased with how it went. Like I said, I'm trying to go back to my old school roots, pun unintended, trying to go back to my old roots to make like these big, silly, over-the-top designs. And like I said, it's been a long time since I've done this, so I'm actually really happy with how it came out, especially considering I did have to limit myself in a few places to avoid crashing it. And I like it. It's just, for me, it's quite nostalgic. And when I showed a couple of my patrons beforehand, they said the same thing. It was reminiscent of my older styles of what actually introduced a lot of people to my channel in the first place. You know, talking about like Red Dragon here, or even older than that, some of my oldest Freedom creations, and I like it. That is the goal, is something that I used to do, and I'm trying to bring it back. And there's really not much more I can say other than to repeat myself, but I just really like it. I had a lot of fun doing this. It was a challenge. The biggest challenge actually was letting myself go. Because the last couple of creations I've been, well, the last many creations I've been doing have been very rigid, with a very, you know, set goal to have it look a certain way. This time around is pure improv, and as hard as it was to let go, it was really fun. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope you look forward to more. Let me know what elements you'd like to see next.